So when you joined up, is that process joining the TA/reserves as easy as joining the regular, or?
I remember it was a real tough interview, right? Real tough process. I went in to see the PSAO and also the regular soldier. He was a warrant officer, and he just said, "You're ex-regular, are you?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You're in."
Oh, really?
Effectively, yeah, yeah. And because of my service, and I think it was because I hadn't been out long, they allowed my previous service. I didn't have to do basic training.
Oh, sweet. Okay, that's cool.
So I thought, yes.
That's good. So did you have to go back and do any like refresher training or anything?
They just took me on the ranges and then just tested me and did some refresh. And then because it was bomb EOD, I did have to do all of those courses.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had to learn about that.
Did
obviously.
you say you wanted to join that part, or did they give you it as an offer?
Well, that unit is a EOD.
Right.
So there was, the nearest engineer unit other than that was, I think, Elstree, and they were commandos.
Okay. So what was that regiment?
That was 101 Regiment, and it was 221 Field Squadron.
Okay. And so EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal.
Yeah.
Again, for anybody that's not aware of that, we have that in the Royal Engineers, and also nowadays I think the RLC Royal Logistics Corps.
Yeah.
So how did you find the bomb disposal course? Because you mentioned from when you did Gib Barracks with the Phase 2, you loved DEMS. So was the bomb disposal course like really exciting for you?
Yeah. Well, the TA course is run at 3-3. Engineer Regiment, so it was. I know they've moved to Colchester now, I think, but back then they were still at Chatton,
okay.
And they had the big bomb outside on it, standing on its nose. Epic place, and we did exactly the same training. We just did it quicker.
Okay, bigger as well.
Yeah. It was interesting, and I love the DEMS day. It's awe-inspiring and also frightening of what explosives can do. I've got an amazing amount of respect for my comrades who do that. And you mentioned RLC. Mm-hmm. RLC, they deal with IEDs. Actually, in Afghan, the Royal Engineers were dealing with IEDs as well. But in peacetime role, anything found on land is Royal Engineers. Anything found on an air base or airfield is RAF. Anything found in water is Navy, and any improvised device is anything that's found in suitcases dealt with RLC.
Okay, yeah. And so you join back up. You passed that course with the EOD aspect, and then how do you find the subsequent years from that with balancing a civilian job alongside enjoying military life again, I guess?
Yeah, well, I also had a family as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
My first son was born in 95, so that was interesting. Always a little bit sad when you're leaving him on Friday and he knows he's not going to see you. So I can only imagine how that's amplified when you're going on tour for months and months, because I was never married in the Reg Sea.
Right.
So I didn't do that. I found it a breath of fresh air, actually, because I knew I was going to be with a bunch of guys who had a sick sense of humour, could just deal with anything in a different way and not whinge.
Yeah.
And if they did whinge, you just give them a sharp telling off and say, get a grip, right?
Yeah.
And in civilian street, that sort of direct approach is not as welcome sometimes.
It's not.
Yeah.
So I guess did you keep your rank? So did you join straight up as a Lance Jack?
No, but I in fairness, I went through pretty quickly.
Okay.
But I didn't get my rank back, no, because they said you'd been out too long to that. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So what stage did you get your rank to get back to where you were?
I think it was pretty much in the first 6 months. Maybe
that quick?
Between 6 and 12 months, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And then you did mention you left as a sergeant, so I'm guessing in this 7-year period, you go through. Do you actually do commander courses and stuff as part of the TA?
Yeah, and do you know, I did my field sergeant's course in the TA.
Okay.
And they were surprised. They said, you're the only EOD operative that we've had coming through for a field sergeant's course. He says, because usually you FE train, field engineer stream.
Yeah.
And bomb disposal don't do that because they've got their own. When you do the bomb disposal officers course, which I did, that's your field sergeant's course, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're going two different ways.
Yeah.
But I did both.
Okay. And so from your time in the EOD aspect, is there a standout moment or experience that you can share that maybe you thought, you know what, I'm bloody glad I joined back up?
Yeah. It was when we went on a tour to clear a load of unexploded ordnance in Dunoon, right, Scotland. Now, it may not be a well-known fact that for the Dunkirk, right, Dunoon's terrain is pretty similar, and for the practice for the assault, they did a lot of practicing on a lot of mortars, firing, practicing for the event. And as you probably know, well, the amount of explosives that actually do detonate now is more reliable than it used to be. Back in those days, for every 100 rounds or ordnance that was fired, there'd be 25 that don't go off.
Right. Okay.
So you can imagine the amount of firepower they were putting in, and all of the area around, as many areas around the world with unexploded ordnance. And if all of the EOD operatives were deployed at once, including retired, there's enough work for quite a few years just to concentrate on clearing.
Wow. So did you actually go and don't know what the wording is here? When you dispose of it, or or what do you call it when you
make safe?
Make safe.
Yeah.
So did you do that on a few occasions? And
and there was lots. We were dealing with lots of phosphorus mortars as well.
Right.
So they're not nice if they go off. And then we collect it all and put it in a cache. And at the end of the week, we're happy days because you just see it all go up.
So do you have to wear lots of really safety gear when you're doing that, or does it depend on how big the bomb is? Or
for the big ones, I mean, you put your protective kit on. I mean, you tend to not need it when you're actually at it. I mean, I don't know what the standard practice is now.
Sure,
it's personal preference. If you've got a heavy kit on, and maybe when you're next to it, if it's not, it's a personal call. You might want to take your hat off or the protective gear because it's not going to make that much difference. But when we were doing mortars, we never really had much protective kit on. It was a mine prodder and a mine detector.
Okay,
and that was it really.
Any oh shit moments that happened?
There were some nearly oh shit moments.
Yeah.
Because some of the younger lads weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and you think, flipping heck. And you just have a quick word and say, no, mate, go and take a break.
Yeah,
because you just got to keep an eye on things. But your question was any moments that made me feel glad about going back in.
Yeah,
there was that. But what we do at night time for enjoyment is just as important. And I love sods operas. And I'm sure you'll explain what a sods opera is.
You go for it. You explain it.
Right, so a sods opera is where we get the chance at the end of a tour to make up a few plays, right, a few sketches, and we can take the absolute piss out of anyone. And it doesn't matter on your rank. And if you're going to get sad about it, then you're a saddo. Because most of it's took in jest. The only thing, we had a rule that you do not insult anyone's family. You can say what you like about an individual. You don't say anything about the family or relationships or anything like that. And at the time, there was a recruitment campaign going on about be the best, be British Army. And we had a different sketch on that about be the best, be the biffs, right? Because we were taking the mick out of some of the cock-ups that had happened. And that was brilliant because I was on guard. I drew the short straw. And I was on guard, or the guard commander. And then they were getting really bored, so they just came and said, Joe, can you come and put a Sod's Opera together? And within about 20 minutes, shows how resourceful squaddies are, right? We had this thing that everyone was creased up laughing, and we had some civvies with us as well. And we put together this Sod's Opera, taking the absolute Michael out of everyone. And that was, I thought, this is what counts. You know, when you're at the sharp end and you know that anyone could be killed at any time if anything goes wrong. And then at night time, you just forget all about that. And you just come together as a real close-knit bunch of people.
Yeah, it's definitely unique to the military. I think other countries are similar, but that's how you can really switch off from the stresses of maybe your main role. So thanks for sharing that. It's really cool to have it explained in a much better way than I could, for sure. Now, something just popped into my head from you and me chatting off air, off recording.
Oh, no.
You did mention about doing Army diver aptitude, like I did. Was that during your time as a regular or as a TA?
Regular.
That was regular.
Yeah.
So you did the PTI course and you passed that, and then you wanted to have something a bit more challenging. How did you find that Army divers course?
That was tough, and something we didn't discuss actually. I did two.
You did two?
Because I did, when I was in Germany, I did the one in Kiel and Kiel Harbour. But I came down with tonsillitis, so I never finished that. And
great excuse.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because you told me that one about where the PTI was on the same one as you, and he got a big fat Freddy. He failed. Yeah. But then again, you got to put failure down to as experience, and then you take that take feedback. Failure is feedback. So long as you use the feedback, then it's good. So I did use the feedback. I thought, right, so what have I got to do to pass the diver's aptitude? So I made sure I trained hard, and then I went down to Portsmouth. Yeah, I did it there. Yeah, Gosport.
Horsey Island.
That's right. Yeah. And I won't name him because he was only small though. He was near height to a grasshopper, our instructor, and he used to run in. I think it was between 5 and 10 miles in the morning, and then cycle home, and then cycle in the next day and run home. He'd do that before he took us out for the beasting.
Oh, wow.
He was so fit. He ended up being, I do believe he ended up being the RSM at Hereford.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. He was a fit lad.
Yeah.
And he beasted us. And I was taken to places physically that I'd never been before, even on my PTI's course. And short of crying, I mean, dragging tyres and then swapping around halfway around and having to carry the log. And then we were dragging other stuff as well. And that was tough.
How did you find it underwater doing the diving?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Except what I didn't like, I don't know whether you did this, we had to take a piece, a block of wood down and saw it in half. How stupid is that? And we couldn't use the vice even though there was a vice down there. And we had to bring both pieces back up, and we had to carry a saw, and we had something else to carry. And I couldn't see a bloody thing.
So that still happens.
Does it?
Now, bearing in mind, I did my course a few years back. So there was 3 phases. There was the block of wood with the blunt saw.
Yeah.
There was the link chains.
That's right.
With the chisel and hammer, which you ain't getting through that link chain because it's thick as anything.
Yeah.
But it's just the action. And then the last one was a scaffold pole with a blunt hacksaw.
That's right. Yeah. Still the same, flipping it.
Now that one, I don't think I've said this on the podcast before. So if you remember, there was like electrical tape around it, so you know where to cut.
Yeah.
And I'd cut through mine, and you get on the radio, and I said, Diver Watson completed work, and they said, Diver Watson, come up. So I came up with the piece, and I remember the instructor went, is that what you fucking done? Get the fuck back down there and do it again. So I went back down there. There's me sawing away with this blunt hacksaw. I couldn't get through it again because I'd kind of like exhausted myself from the first time. Once we completed that and we were getting changed, I said to all the other guys, like, so who else cut a piece of that off? cut a piece of that scaffold pole off. No one, mate, no one. What? So I was the only one, and I've still got that piece of scaffold in there.
Wow, well done.
So that's a real proud moment from my aptitude. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's fabulous. That.
But you mentioned about the block of wood. So every time you cut a bit off, it just floated up, didn't it?
Yeah.
Stupid bloody thing.
I'm trying to catch it, and I use the word try because that's interesting because that's a word I absolutely despise. Yeah, I try. Yeah, don't like that word.
And I just remember the last bit I'll share now is when you were using the chisel and the hammer. I had a freaking crab try and nib me.
Did you?
Yeah, stupid crabs. So me being me, I tried to get it with a hammer, but I missed because it just moved out of the way. But yeah, so that's good because I wasn't fit. I wasn't fit on land. So I was always at the back, but I never gave up. I just kept going.
That's good, yeah.
And as soon as I got in the water, because I'd done civvy diving before, so I knew I was good at diving, I was ahead of everybody.
Wow.
And again, going back to the instructor, they like to swear, but they were like, fucking hell, Watson, finally you're good at something.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, wow.
So yeah, great that you went on the same course as me. And you know, that week of hell is a proud moment, isn't it? When you finish it.
And you know what? It just teaches you so much about yourself. It's much more about that. Because I mean, if you think about it, there's not much diving.
There isn't, no.
It's all about head.
Yeah, I'm not giving up, and
Yeah.
you just keep.
I mean, there's enough diving for them to know that you can dive.
Yeah,
but it's all about can you be counted on in a moment of truth when
absolutely.
You needed.
Yeah, and doing the work under the water, right? So
yeah.
Did you used to dive off the high board as well?
Yeah.
So you climb all the way to the top and then you dive off and you have to point your fins so you don't snap your ankles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Point your flippers.
That's it.
Oh, tanks. It's not a fucking tanker.
Yeah.
You're not. Yeah.
It's a cylinder and it's fins, not a flipper. You're not a dolphin.
I can see that over there. Run, sprint there and back.
Yeah.
Oh, Connor. Yeah, I got it.
I remember we were in breakfast and the advanced course was on the same time as us, and they'd royally messed up. So their task, you know, Horsey Island is like a mile long, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lengthwise. They had to push a Land Rover around it with one guy sat in it, steering it.
Who was the lad who was steering it? He must have been
Maybe he was the one that messed up.
Yeah, he's probably the one who dropped the clanger, wasn't he? Yeah.
So that's good. That's good. So now, just going back to your time as a TA soldier, did you do any courses within that, aside from the EOD, that really challenged you? Because it sounds like when you were a regular, you wanted the challenge from the physical aspect. Was there something that you wanted to challenge yourself with whilst you were a TA soldier?
Yeah. Well, I became range master qualified, so I could run a firing range. I also became skillet arms instructor at the School of Infantry down at Brecon. Did a few other things. They were quite memorable though. I really enjoyed that. And then I transferred to another regiment towards the end.
What regiment? What, away from the engineers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to share that?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Well, I am now. I'm no security threat. I'd always wanted to be a member of the regiment where you really tested. I think the engineers do that to a great degree, and every sapper would say that, wouldn't we? Where I transferred for selection, and I remember during selection in October 1999, that's when we're in the Brecons, and it's 8:30 at night, so it's pitch black, and there's gales, force winds blowing, and it was sleet, hail sort of weather.
And sorry, you mentioned selection. That's for the special forces.
Yeah. And because I was going to come on to that actually. Yeah, and the Bergen is quite heavy. Backpack, it was about 65 pounds, and then you're carrying water and stuff. And all of a sudden, it becomes light, and it's heavy. Then it's light, and then it's heavy. And I think, oh, that hurt. And then I hear Jack says, after about an hour and a half lying there, "We've given you morphine, O'Connor. You'll be all right." And then I'm sort of out of it then. And that was Saturday night. On the Monday morning, as I opened my eyes, I think, oh, where am I? and see it all white around, smell of antiseptic. And I thought, this is similar to when I was 14. And I'm looking up, and this time it's not a big black, gay, massive giant standing over me. It's a chap in a pinstripe suit, smart looking, with an entourage of white coats behind him. And he looks at me, he says, Mr. O'Connor. I thought, yeah, that's my name. You were out in gale force winds. The weather was terrible. You shouldn't have been there, really. I thought, no shit, Sherlock. A gust of wind lifted you off your feet. You fell 400 foot and you broken your neck. And you were out with the SAS. I thought, well, I know that. And then I thought, so that's why I can't move. Mr. O'Connor, we need to operate now. You can't sign the papers because you're paralysed. Just give us a verbal go ahead. I said, well, what happens if I don't sign the papers? Well, you'll be paralysed for the rest of your life, Mr. O'Connor. I thought, well, that's not a very good choice, is it? I said, well, operate. And then as he's walking off, I said, oh, one more thing. I've got a marathon to run in New York on Sunday for a charity. And it's because you know how you go into denial at first, don't you? And then there's shock, then there's anger, and then there's acceptance. Well, I was in the denial phase because I'd only just been told. He says, Mr. O'Connor, you won't be running any marathon. You'll be fortunate if you can walk again. And you can see that I can walk. So I'm blessed for that. And then a whole load of challenges followed on from that.
Okay. So that's quite a story. So you were trying to challenge yourself by going for special force selection, which we all are aware is very, very difficult to even attempt. And then you get lifted up by some crazy strong winds and thrown off the edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
That's mad. And you don't remember it 100%, I guess, because you're...
Well, I know. I remember falling down. Well, I didn't know I was falling, by the way. That's
really?
why. Yeah,
wow.
I just knew that the Bergen was light, which is why I tell it the way I do.
Yeah.
And then I hit the ground a few times, and then on the last impact, that's when my neck really hurt.
All right. Okay.
And I thought, ouch. And then all sorts of things go through your mind. First being, I don't want to die. I want to live. I'm not ready to die. I've got a what was he? A 4-year-old boy waiting for me at home. My wife's pregnant with our second child, and I've got mortgages to finish on Monday.
Right.
Because I was a finance advisor. You know, I'm a Saturday and Sunday. I've got mortgages. I've got an investment. I can't die. I've got to look after my clients, and just all sorts of things. Because I was lying there, they couldn't get to me for an hour and a half. Because obviously coming down the same way wouldn't be advisable. So they had to track all the way down and come back, traverse back. And how that RAF helicopter got to me flying.
Oh, it was RAF helicopter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where would it have come from? The local Anglesey, probably. Yeah.
You mentioned a name. You mentioned Jack.
Yeah, Jack. He was actually. I've met the officer who was the ops officer on the night who called it in, and Jack was the medic who was with us. He was a GP.
So what? He was looking after people out on the selection course.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was badged. He ended up.
Really?
He was an officer in with Hereford.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he became the commanding officer. And the reason I know that is because I was telling my story to a lady at a networking event one time, and tears started coming down her face. She knew Jack. She went to Oxford with him.
Wow, small world, isn't it?
And he got killed in action, sadly. So I never got to meet him.
Okay.
Which was sad because I would have liked to have thanked him.
Yeah. So going back to you, Joe, you obviously given permission. They do the surgery, and what does that recovery look like?
It was a bit longer than when I was 14. I went through a divorce, moved back in with my mum and dad. I was paralysed for quite some time. And then I eventually started to get my movement back. And then it was a bit like Neanderthal. If you imagine Neanderthal man, how they show you the picture in that animation.
what's the word?
Evolve.
Evolution. That's
Evolution,
one.
yes, thank you. Yeah, it was sort of that getting back to where I am now. And you know, you wouldn't know that had happened to me, I suppose, when you first saw me. When you look at me now with in a different view, you'll notice that my head movements are restricted. I knew at the time that my break dancing days had finished. I just knew that wasn't going to happen anymore. And then I still have pins and needles and everything now, but I do say, but for the grace of God go I. I mean, there are lots of people who are far worse off than I am. So I just thank my lucky stars.
Yeah. And is there anything that, I mean, roughly, can you remember how old you were?
I was 37.
That was 37.
So I was, well, I didn't mention that actually. I was 37. So I remember going the interview for selection. They did say you're a bit old, aren't you?
Really? They said that, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, because it costs a lot of money to train a trooper, doesn't it?
Yeah, true.
And there were 67 of us on the pre-selection, which was over Winter Hill, which is the Pennines really, over Winter Hill and back. We ran 4 miles and I thought, wow. And then the DS staff, I thought I'd finished. His DS just pointed back. So we had to run back the same way. So it's over the hill where the big mast is. And that was 8 miles and I came third.
Oh, nice.
So they said, yeah, okay, you can do it.
Right.
Because I'd been a PTI. I was a PTI, wasn't I? So I knew what I needed to do. And not many people know. Remember I said in 1993, 94, I joined. Well, I went for selection at 2-1 down at in the Duke of York's. Well, it was Dulwich then. But I would say I would own a nightclub. I hadn't done much fizz, and I was what I would class myself as a fub, a fat useless, right? Because I mean that in the nicest possible way. I was still okay, but I wasn't fit enough to go on selection, and I discovered that.
Okay.
So that was a case of, like the diver's aptitude, do it again.
Right.
So never, ever, ever give up.
Okay. So you recover from that. Are you still part of the TA, or did they, kind of say goodbye?
Said goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you. And effectively, like I say, I process it this way. If I was in a sales team and my sales performance wasn't good, I'd get fired. Well, guess what? I've broken my neck. I'm paralysed, recovering slowly. I can't do bomb disposal because I've got no feeling in my fingers.
Okay.
And I can't do fizz either.
Yeah.
So from pure logistic point of view, remove the emotion. Logistically,
Makes sense.
I can't function as a top class British soldier. So
did they medically retire you, or they
yeah.
They did, yeah. Okay, that's good that they kind of did that rather than just
yeah.
signed you off essentially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So you finished that, and remind us what year that is that you.
2001.
2001. Okay. And then are you able to continue with your financial aspect?
It was not easy to start with, and I'd suffered from. I'm not sure whether it's amnesia or memory loss, how you do it, but I know that my powers of recollection have become hindered, so it wasn't easy, and I had to learn things again. I had to learn to write again. Simple. The mechanics of the body are just all gone, and I remember occupational therapy treatment and physiotherapy as well, and I had to take my driving test again.
Did they tell you that, or
Yeah.
Right.
DVLA
because of what you'd gone through.
Because of what I've gone through. So I had to do all sorts. Simple thing like looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
To reverse.
Yeah.
It's not as easy. I needed a car adapted and things, and now I'm a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But well done for getting through that, because that was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, and thank you. And I always refer back to, and I say it to my sons now, I was always told, if it doesn't kill you, it'll do you good. So, and I'm not dead.
Yeah, you're not.
So,
you're here with me. So,
yeah, so
great.
thank you. Yeah, good, great observation. So, I mean, the fact is that I've just developed processes that get me through stuff quickly.
Okay. So I just mentioned then we've got a 20-year period between kind of the end of your time in the military, being a veteran fully. What would you like to talk about within that time period? I mean, did you grow your own business? What does that look like?
Yeah, I returned to being a financial advisor, which was great because you have to do things that's called CPD, continuous professional development.
Okay.
So I had to take exams to make sure everything was okay. Then I had a burning desire to help veterans or people coming out of the military in some way, shape or form, but I didn't know how. And because I wanted to share the ability to get over stuff, right? Because shit happens, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
The thing is, though, apart from the old military style, get on with it, mate, that's not good enough, especially for some people some veterans who are emotionally weakened by experience, because when shit happens, it affects us all differently. And I'm not saying I'm superhuman, because I'm certainly not. There are times when I've just sat down and cried. And I've had interesting conversations with mates of mine who stayed in when I got out, and they went to Kosovo, Serbia conflict, and they've seen some horrific things. And I wanted to be able to systemize, if you like, how I get over stuff. So I learned about hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, which effectively is what the military uses to program us in training.
Okay.
It's what you say, how you process stuff, how you react to stuff, the self-talk. That's what NLP is. It's to be able to use language, the English language, in a way that can get someone to do something that they wouldn't have done had you not been there to help them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I also learned about timeline therapy, which is if I said to you, where is your future? You would point somewhere, wouldn't you? You would either point in front, behind, up, down, to the side. And if I said to you, where is your past? You would either point behind, to the front, up, down. Usually it is a direction opposite to what the future was. The future and past is different, right? So if I say to you, where's your future? Where would you point now?
Probably ahead of me.
Right. And if I was to say to you, where's your past? Where would you point?
Probably behind me.
Right. Okay. So that indicates a clear timeline.
Okay.
Right? So future is in front of you. Timeline, past is behind you. And by the way, sometimes it's opposite for different people.
Different people,
right?
okay.
What timeline therapy does is takes you along that line to events in your life that have been challenging. And it can even take you out to the future as well, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
Right. And that's how I learned that this is really effective for PTSD. I know you've got CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, and there's other ways, EMDR, which is rapid eye movement, and there's lots of other stuff. I found it's timeline therapy because the pretty cool thing about learning to be a practitioner, then I moved on to be a master practitioner, and now I'm actually a trainer in it. So, because I wanted to really understand how the wine works. The pretty cool thing about it is to actually learn to deliver it, you have to work with a buddy-buddy system where you practice on them, they practice on you. So what I got was a complete therapy clean out for me because someone was practicing on me. Okay. And while they weren't, I just immersed myself in. So I thought, wow, this stuff works. Because you can imagine, right, 14, what happened to me then?
Yeah.
And then 37, what happened to me then? And then anything in between and before I was 14. That had an impact on me. And it's interesting that it's okay me telling you about this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Most of the things that influence you, anyone, during their lives, is what happens to you before the age 7.
Before 7. Okay, yeah. Interesting.
First 7 years are the formative years, right? And how illogical is it that lots of people frame what they can do in life because they were told at age 5, you stupid boy, or you stupid girl, or you can't do that. Again, moving back to never let anyone stop you from doing what you're capable of just because they're not.
Yeah.
So if someone says to you, you can't do that when you were before age 7, that'll stay with you. And how daft's that for a 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old? So I often find that when we get to the root cause of something that's stopping someone doing something, it happened before they were 7.
Okay.
So I couple that. Then that's when I founded the charity, with Transformation for Veterans, which helps injured veterans and their families. And from that, when I was speaking with a financial client to do a financial review, they said, "Can you help me, Joe?" I said, "Well, yeah, you need a business coach. That's not my bag." He said, "Well, you do work with veterans, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, that's my give back." He said, "Well, what could you do with me?" And then we discussed it. And then I started up, I framed something so it was a coaching course for business people as well. So it all came together then. And that's my purpose in life, to help with health, wealth, mindset.
Nice.
And yeah, and I just love to be able to, pretty much like in the military, because I'm sure you did it, you get someone from not knowing to learning and then to knowing and being competent.
So with everything that you've just mentioned, is there a way for anybody to reach out or connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the charity website, which is www.transformationforveterans.org.uk.
Yeah.
Or we've got the Transformer website, which is www.thetransformer.co.uk. And I was chuffed to bits that those domain names were available, because I never thought I'd get the Transformer as a domain name, which is
Pretty
I like
cool.
that, yeah. And then I've got a financial advisor website, which is too difficult to say on here because it's got hashtags and all sorts, forward slashes. So I mean, but if you go to Transformer website or the charity website, that's great. Yeah.
And you're on social media as well, I think.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Under the Transformer, I've got LinkedIn profile and Twitter, the one Transformer.
Good stuff.
Yeah, thank
Cool.
you.
Well, Joe, I feel like we're nearing the end of your episode. It's been great listening to what you've gone through. Was there anything we didn't get to touch on that you thought we would? Just give you that moment.
Oh, that's a great opportunity. I think we've pretty much covered everything. The one thing that I would like to say, though, is the most important thing to me is this one thing. Never, ever, ever let anyone stop you from doing what you're capable of, especially if it's only because they can't do it.
Yeah. It's good advice there. Definitely good advice. Talking of advice, this is now the point in the show that I'd love you to share your advice for anybody that's thinking of joining the military. It might not be the British Army, but any part of the military. Have you got advice for them that are potentially going to be joining up?
Yeah. When things get tough, as they will, just push beyond it. And first of all, before you join, do some research and make sure you're aware of what's needed to make the mark. And then don't listen to anyone else. Just focus on what you want. And even when things get tough, because I remember in basic training, and lots of times other people in the room have cried and PVR'd, personal voluntary release. Just stay true to your dream.
And get through it. Some great advice. And then the next part is, what advice have you got for veterans, people that are maybe just about to transition back to civilian life or potentially being veterans for multiple years? Have you got any advice for them?
Yeah, I would make sure you've got a strong support network, and there's no need to suffer on your own. Ask for help. And I know we're big, roughy, toughy soldiers, aren't we? And we can overcome anything. Not so. If you remember, I touched on it before. I was chatting to people who've been of my era, Kosovo, Serbia. That was a horrible war, and Iraq one was as well. And some of them were over 6 foot and cried their eyes out. And you've just got to have. But once we'd talked about it, it wasn't a problem. It wasn't so much of a problem anymore. So make sure you've got a good support network.
Yeah. Caring, sharing, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Well, sharing's caring, shall I say?
Yeah.
Whichever way around it is. Some great advice there, Joe. So thank you so much. So how was it for you coming on the show and sharing what you've gone through?
Brilliant. And I tell you what, your setup is really smart. And I love your interview style. It's professional. It's laid back. Felt totally relaxed. And I just wish you the very best. And hopefully what I've shared with you today will be of use to someone.
I'm sure it will.
And if they get just one thing out of it, that's a result for me.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for your nice words about my setup. I'm proud of it, and I'm going to keep going and helping future veterans. But thank you for sharing what you've gone through. Thank you for giving me some of your time today to come on the show. I know I've come up to your location, but thank you for giving some time today.
And thank you for putting the extra mile in, literally extra miles to come up here. So thank you so much.
That's okay. I don't know if it's a few 100 miles. It probably isn't.
Yeah, it is at least. Yeah. Because I used to do that journey regularly to go back down to Kent.
Yeah.
It's 236 miles.
Oh, blooming heck. I got to do that going back now. So. And lastly, I say this to all my guests. Thank you for your service.
Yes. And thank you for yours too.
No problem at all. No problem at all. This has been Military Veterans Podcast. Out.